Thank you so much for joining us today. I really appreciate your time.
My pleasure. My pleasure. This is not my apartment, by the way. I'm in Atlanta prepping a movie, so it's a rental.
Well, I like the illuminated ice cream, the popsicles coming down. Those are kind of cool.
Yes, it's got it all going on here.
So I guess we'll just jump right into it.
Yeah.
This is, well, we have students joining us. This is the Visiting Artist Series. It's a program that we've been doing at DePaul University at our film school for over 15 years. And we are just so excited and so thankful to have you joining us tonight. Thank you for being a part of it.
It's an honor. Thank you for thinking of me.
My pleasure. So I'm just going to jump into it. We've got some questions, and I'd like to start from the very beginning. Oh, could you please turn the audio off of that? I'm getting reverb here. So you started in the industry as a comedic actor, and you segued into writing and now directing and executive producing. Can you talk about what 1999 was like for you? How you segued from being a television actor and a film actor into creating what, well, frankly, at DePaul University, with our film school and our screenwriting students, one of the most beloved and favorite television series of all time, Freaks and Geeks. I teach a lot of television writing classes, and I have never had more students write spec reboots for any other series in my life than Freaks and Geeks. A lot of class reunion specs.
Well, that's I mean, I'm honored and impressed. That's really cool. Yeah. No, I mean, 1999 was an interesting year for me. I mean, I was I'd been an actor for a long time, and doing well as an actor. I mean, as a character actor, be like the 6th or 7th lead on a TV series, and I had 5 that went to a network and aired, but all got canceled. Except the last one, Sabrina the Teenage Witch, didn't get canceled, but they fired me off of it. So they wrote me out after the first season. But I had taken all my money from that and put it into this this independent feature that I wrote and directed and produced and starred and did everything for, called Life Sold Separately.
And that was with Steve Banos and Dave Gruber, right?
Yeah, yep. Dave Gruber Allen, Steve Banas, and Penn Jillette in what he still says is one of his favorite roles he's ever done. So,
oh wow.
So, of Penn and Teller, yeah. So we shot it. I wrote it for the money I had, and shot it on 16 millimeter. We shot it in 6 days, a feature length, but I had it all boarded out. It was just like, okay, we had short end, in the days of film, you used to buy short ends, which are just like kind of what's left over from a full reel. And, so literally had some were just like, okay, and roll, say the line. Okay. And we're out of film, but learned a lot doing it. I mean, I learned as much as I did when I was in film school just by doing the practical application, and then had this movie, but couldn't get it in any film festivals and couldn't sell it anywhere. And, it was too small. That was the year that kind of independent film and like Sundance and stuff really took off. There weren't as many submissions back then. And then the year we did, it was like 1,500 submissions. So we were kind of dead in the water. But my friend Judd Apatow, we were stand-up comedians together, saw it and really, liked it and thought there's something interesting in it, and basically said, if you ever have an idea for a TV show, because he had just signed a deal at DreamWorks coming out of the Larry Sanders Show, to do his own shows, and so I sent it to him. Basically, I said, I jumped ahead. So I said, oh, thanks. So then like a year went by of trying to get this movie out there and getting to film festivals. And finally I was out on the road in a film festival called Flicks Tour, which is like a college festival. And you would just drive around the country and show your movie. I wrote Freaks and Geeks as a spec. which back then you didn't do. Back then it didn't make any sense to write spec pilots because the system was set up that you had to go in, pitch it, and then develop it with the network and with a studio. So they kind of didn't like you just coming in with something. But what happened was that year, a movie called Welcome to the Dollhouse had come out.
Oh, sure.
Todd Solondz movie. Yeah.
Solid.
Yeah, and it was a really, it had the tone that I like too, and so apparently all the networks kind of said, oh, we want one of those, like something that feels like that. And so they're developing all these like high school shows, but I guess the development just didn't go well. So we went out in the market very late. It was like the end of January when we went to market. And normally they've already decided what pilots they're going to make. This is back in the old days of when they were just networks. Sure. And but kind of they read my pilot and kind of they went, oh, that's the one we want. So they threw all the other ones out and really fast tracked us. So we really got fast tracked into production, which was very cool.
That's especially early for a 1 hour show, isn't it? Even earlier than for a half hour.
Yeah, totally. I mean, the hours normally get bought up, but because there's so much they have to do to prep them. But no, we kind of raced in there. It was it was a game changer for me because it was like that year leading up to it was the worst year of my career because I bankrupted my wife and I making this movie, and then I couldn't sell it anywhere, and I was off that show. I didn't have any income. So in the darkest hour, I just, I was always writing. I mean, that's always the takeaway from this that I always say to people is like, if you want to be a writer, if you want to get stuff made, you want to be a filmmaker, just keep writing, just, because you don't know what's going to make it. I had the infamous script, the desk full of, 10 scripts that I'd written and all that. And, nobody cared about them. This is one I just wrote almost as kind of an exercise. And then suddenly, here we were.
So I hope this is okay. I hope I'm not getting anybody into trouble, but we use your show Bible for Freaks and Geeks as something that we study very much in creating our own television pilots at DePaul. I ran into this situation years ago when I sold my first pilot to, UPN, when there was a UPN, where they liked the pitch, they got the show, but they wanted to kind of see a show Bible first. But you wrote your spec first. Did they ask to see the show Bible after? How did that process work for you?
No, what it was is, when we just sold the pilot to them. They made the pilot. They didn't really ask a lot of questions about where it was going to go. But as we were kind of, it really happened when they were making the deal for my pilot script. It took like 2 months. It took a long time. And I just remember in the middle of that, Judd going like, why don't you just write like a Bible for the show, and kind of figure out where it's going to go. And I was like, okay, cool. So I did. But then I also knew when we were going into production that I was going to be fighting against a lot of preconceived notions about what the late 70s were going to look like, because that 70s show was on the air, right. Very funny show, but a very cartoony version of the 70s. And I was really like hell bent on like, this has to be authentic. This has to represent what I went through, what I saw, because I didn't like things about high school I'd seen on TV. And so really almost kind of did it as a guide for all the departments, for all the actors. I mean, I don't know. I don't know if it ever got updated. If you look at like the description of like some of the characters, I don't even know if that's in the Bible or not. They actually don't even match up with who we ended up casting. Like Daniel Gistario was a completely different character and stuff. But
there's a lot of
really helpful for me.
Yeah, that's great, and probably for the writing staff too.
Yeah, no, it's great for everyone. I have to ask you a question though.
Sure.
The Bible you have, do you have the addendum also? Because there's a second half to it that nobody seems to ever have.
I don't think so, but we have. I can send you a PDF of it in case you're curious.
Yeah, send me what you got, because yeah. Because I can send you the missing parts. Totally.
Sure. Oh, I love that. Love that. And I also have, I think it's volume 1 of the Freaks and Geeks scripts.
Oh, the scripts.
And just, forgive me for fanboying out here, but just the fact being a huge Freaks and Geeks fan, thank you so much for having that published. It's such a great tool for not just fans, but also for television writing students to have not just a pilot, which, we can find floating around, but actual episodes for that particular show and for a first season of a series. And that really makes a big difference. Thank you so much for that.
No, I mean, honestly, that was a reaction to, I would, buy these script books because they would publish, the screenplays of Woody Allen or the screenplay of whoever. And I would, I would right away and pay this money for those, and I would get them, and they were always transcripts. And it would just, I would get so angry about it because, like, I don't need a transcript of something I watched. Literally, like, Manhattan had like, it's like, really, did he write others in there? So for me, it's just like, no, I want to publish what we wrote, and then you can kind of compare and see what we changed, and all that. So I'm very proud that we did that. I'm very happy that company let us do it. And there's if you don't have the second volume, I'll send you the second volume too.
Oh my God, thank you. So was Freaks and Geeks, was that the big stepstone for you in moving from just focusing on acting to acting and writing and directing?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that was a game changer for me because as soon as I got written out of Sabrina the Teenage Witch in the middle of that, trying to sell this movie and everything, I remember just kind of going like, I don't think I want to be an actor anymore as my career because there's just no control whatsoever. And I'd always wanted to be behind the camera. I fancy that I was going to be the guy who wrote, directed, and starred in his own stuff, and that's actually the movie Life Sold Separately that I did. I starred in it too. And, one of the many reasons you probably don't want to see it, but it's fine. Yeah, it's whatever. But I just I had a real interesting thing happen. I've told this before, so if you've heard it before, please stop me. I'd done the movie and was in post-production on it. And then I got an audition with John Landis, who had directed a lot of my favorite comedies at the time, like Animal House and Blues Brothers, those kind of things. And so went in and so I'm like, oh my gosh, here's this guy. I really, admire his work. And he's like, oh, so I see you just directed a movie. And I was like, oh, yes. And so we had this like 15-minute talk of like two directors talking, and it was so exciting and all that. And then he goes, okay, so you're going to read for us now. And there was something in my head snapped of like, oh, I don't like this because now I'm the guy looking for a job who I'm clearly probably not going to get it just because whatever, because you audition for a million things. And I remember kind of taking that moment going like, I think I'm going to stay behind the camera. And then I think I'm better off at making other people look good on camera, and directing them and being the outside eye that can lead them to their best selves.
Well, can I ask, and I hope I'm not putting you on the spot here, but as an actor coming from acting, how has that influenced you as a screenwriter and as a director? Before you answer, everyone in the room, can I ask you to please mute yourselves? Everyone, please mute yourselves. Okay, thank you. Sorry about that, Paul.
That's right. It's hugely important. I mean, it's really formed who I am as a director. Because, look, there's all kinds of directors. There's some directors who are just, obviously you got to be fully formed. But at the same time, some people are really great technicians. Some people are amazing image people. Other people are great with actors, and when you get the people that do it all, then you've got, this amazing thing. But in general, you find that directors kind of have a strength they go to. And I've always felt my strength is with performance and performers and how to capture them and how to get the best out of them. And so for me, that being an actor, I knew exactly what they're going through, and I, over the course of my career, had been in situations with really great directors who just made you feel like you wanted to give your all and you felt like you could try anything, and others that you would try something like, I always used to like to try to ad lib a joke or surprise people with something. some directors would like slap you down, like, no, what are you doing? And the minute that would happen, I would tense up and I wouldn't be kind of good anymore. And I realized with comedy people, if you're going to sit on comedy people, don't hire comedy people, because comedy people are going to bring you all this extra stuff that you can then shoot and use, or you can, shoot and not use, but, better to have it than to not have it. So I really think it informed who I am in making a very happy set, creating a set where the actors feel very safe and they can try anything. And I'm never going to go like, what are you doing? I think it sometimes, they'll do something. I'm like, that was terrible. But then I'll get back in the editing room. The thing I thought was terrible, I actually end up using in the movie, because it's just not what I had in my head at that time, but it was authentic to that performer, and it brought out the best of who they actually are. So I always say my kind of golden rule is be confident enough to have no confidence, when you get in the set, because you have to be confident to know, I know what I'm doing. I know this is going to work. I'm pretty sure, but then go like, but I don't know if this is going to work. And if somebody's got an idea, let's get their idea in there too. And don't be like a control freak and like, hey, I wrote, took me 2 years to write this. You're going to say it exactly the way I wrote it. It's like, well, get that take. I've got, trust me, there's plenty of people I know that say that to their actors. And it's like, yeah, get the take that you wrote, but then let them play. Who knows what's going to come out of it? They're professionals. They know what they're doing.
Is that sort of how you do it chronologically? You just kind of get what you need, at least following the plot, and then there's time to like experiment a little bit, improvise?
Yeah, I mean, improv is such a misused word in movies, because you never, unless you're, I don't know, even if you're Ken Loach or whatever, you're still doing that in rehearsals and then kind of forging the script out of improvs and all that. You don't show up on the set kind of like, let's see what happens. Very rarely does somebody do that. It's really more about kind of, just like finding different punchlines, trying different attitudes, trying a different middle of the scene of like, oh, maybe what goes over here. But the way that I work is I don't rehearse. Because in the past, in my early career, like, we have to do a camera rehearsal, and you get everybody in there and they're doing this scene and you're like, oh my God, this is so good. I wish we had shot it, and then once you start shooting, I've had so many times you're like, can you do like that thing you did in rehearsal? I don't remember what I did. It's like, so now I just kind of go like, okay, I think you're going to be here. You're going to be here. Let's set up the cameras, or let's like just literally don't do anything other than just read in a monotone as you do this, just to show me where you think you're going to go. And then we just start shooting. And then I don't give any direction when we first start shooting. I know where I want to go. I know what I want. I know what I want the take to be, but I don't want to influence them yet. So I let them do their thing. And, most of the time it's kind of not what you think it's going to be. But then, then I go, oh, well, try this. And I slowly, incrementally move them down the line towards the take that I think I want. And most times when I get to the take I think I wanted, I don't want it anymore, because I think they've come up with more interesting stuff, and it's a little more nuanced and open. But by the time I get to that point, I've probably got 8-10 takes of varying degrees that then when I get in the editing room, then I can try anything. And I've got I've got a lot of different ways to go. So it gives me the most variety.
So Jen Salata was another guest of our visiting artist series. I love her. We met doing a groundlings class like 20 years ago. And I was blown away by how much ends up on the cutting room floor for an episode of that show.
Oh yeah.
So when you're directing a television episode or a pilot, how does that sort of differ from when you're taking on a feature like School for Good and Evil or Bridesmaids, or is there a lot of similarity in terms of like directing the same genre for TV and film, or is it just worlds apart?
Well, it really comes down to the showrunner. I mean, when you're doing TV, unless it's your show, you are playing in somebody else's sandbox. And, I know when we were doing Freaks and Geeks, we had, really great directors on that show, but some would come in just really in service of the style that you set, that they saw in the pilot, that Jake Kasdan, set with us and all that. And then others would kind of come in and want to reinvent the wheel. And it was fine if you kind of came in with that idea, because you don't want somebody just coming like, what do you want? That's not good for us anyway, because we're so busy writing other episodes and editing and all that. But at the same time, you don't want somebody to go, I'm going to do this. They set it up and you're like, oh, that's not the show. And then they're like, oh, but it's going to look terrible if you don't. Don't fight me. If I say it's not the show, don't fight. It's your job to come in with an idea. And if we go like, I don't know, go like, cool. What about this? Can I do this? And so that's really the difference versus in a movie, you're pretty much the director calling the shots. I mean, clearly you've got producers you work with and the studio will weigh in on all this and that. But in general, you are the one making the decisions. You're not answering to anybody, that much the way that you are in a TV set where a producer, a writing producer, usually the person who wrote the episode is sitting next to you. It's very hard to go, okay, we're moving on. It's always like, okay, what do you think? Are you cool? Are you happy? Anything else you want out of this? But that's the job of a TV director. And you have to embrace it, because if you fight it, you're not going to work in TV, because people are going to go like, oh, they're a pain in the ass. Get rid of them.
So is tone, like keeping a consistency in tone for, an already established television series, like one of the big priorities for a television director? Or, I mean, is there a hierarchy of priorities that you come in with when you're directing an episode?
Well, I mean, the tone is usually pretty well set, and the actors kind of know the tone. Mm-hmm. I find it more than anything, I would almost a lot of times like be pushing the actors to try something a little different, that I didn't think was too far out of it, but I knew as an outside eye, like directing Steve Carell in The Office, who's so brilliant, but he's also got this, he's really, he's terrified of going too big or going too unreal and unbelievable. But I could sometimes see him in things and go like, if he goes another 10%, this is going to be the funniest thing ever. But sometimes if you're like, oh, that's going to be too big. It's like, I'm telling you, Steve, I know if you just push it, you're not going to go too big because you won't allow yourself to, but just go to the edge. And a lot of times it'll be like, oh my God, that's so funny. So, but you have to know the actors you're working with. You have to really be in sync with the tone of the show. If you get on, you have to study it, all that. But, your biggest job really is to come in on time, not go over schedule, so there's a whole, you got to think like a producer when you're a TV director too. Because if you get too like, oh, my vision is being ruined, I can't rush. It's like, well, guess what? Then go do your vision when you're paying for it.
I got a chance to direct my first film a few years ago, this little family adventure, this indie. And for me, what kind of surprised me is it reminded me a lot of, remember that game Perfection that you'd play as a kid where you push a tab and then
put in things, bam.
Like if you don't make your day, if you don't tell your shots, it's like this scene is completely useless.
Oh no, totally. No, it's a very stressful thing making a movie is it's not like working in a coal mine or something, but it is just stressful because there's a lot of pressure on you and a lot of people watching, a lot of people counting dollars, staring at their watches, so that's, I want to be the most responsible one on the set. That's, and also I produce the stuff that I do too. So I am also beholden to myself as the producer, but it's all about planning. It's really about how you plan your day. I always work with my assistant director and go like, okay, you do the schedule based on, how I work now. Or if they don't, go like, yeah, I need time for improv in these scenes. I don't need them everywhere, and then we go through and it's kind of, I know during the day I can horse trade, like if I get in a scene that has a lot of stuff that I really want to do ad-libs and stuff, but then there's another little scene that we have to try to get. And the AD's like, we were going to go late. It's like, you know what? I know now I'm going to do that scene in 2 shots. So give me the time I need here, and then I won't burn you on that side, and so, that's why I have them make timelines for me, and then again, from the timelines, I can go like, oh, you know what? I can actually steal an hour off of here and take an hour off of there. But it's all about planning. You can't, especially these days, because everything, I hate to say it, is so corporate. You got the corporate overlords and the money people and the business manager, the business affairs people. Everybody's looking to make sure you don't go over budget. And so you have to be responsible, but it doesn't mean you relinquish your vision. It just means you manage your vision and be smart about it.
So what would you say, again, I hope this isn't like, something, feel free to say pass if you don't want to talk about this, but
I'll talk about anything.
Okay. What would you say is like your least favorite task in directing a film or television show, and what do you love most about it?
I mean, this will sound weird.
What's your most favorite task directing a film or TV?
My most favorite task?
Your least favorite and
least favorite. My least favorite, and this is going to sound weird because I actually love it, but I don't love production, to be quite honest, because I love working with the actors and I love coming up with the stuff and finding the shots and all that stuff. What I don't love is the stress of I can screw this up at any point during the day, during the week, during the month, during production. Like, as it's going well, it's almost worse because you're like, oh no, today's the day I'm going to screw something up. So it's really, it just gets very like stressful as you go forward in that way, pardon me. And, so I guess that's, even though I love it, and I love working with the actors, that's probably the part I'm the most tense about, but I like to have fun at the same time too. So I have to kind of put on this thing like, hey, we're having a great time and keep everybody's energy up, but sleepless nights and all that kind of thing.
So in terms of, my God, in just in the past few years, you've executive produced Zoe's Extraordinary Playlist, which I've never seen a television show, anything like that before. Minx, which is even like on HBO Max, right?
It was, yeah. Now we're on Stars.
On Stars, like it. I've never seen a show like that edgy and that amazing, but also with that much heart at the same time. And Welcome to Flatch, which is a complete departure from Minx. That you've got these shows that are in such different galaxies. What attracts you to like taking on a project that there? I mean, it's not like, well, Paul Feig just does this kind of show. It's like you have a vision for all kinds of shows. What's your passion for? Do you gravitate towards an element of that in particular?
Well, I like anything about underdogs. I mean, if that's kind of the unifying thing of my whole career. If you look at it, it's all variations on underdog stories, but I like stories being told in a million different ways. And what's fun about producing and exec producing is people are bringing me ideas that then I go like, what a cool idea. I don't know how to do that, but you do, because you presented it to me and I see your voice is so strong and you've got such passion for this that I'm going to help you kind of set this up and make sure we got the right cast and make sure you get the right crew and everything. And, we kind of manage the network and the studio and all that. And then I kind of go like that. Now I want you to go and do it. I'm still, I'm still going to read the scripts and going to watch cuts and all. But I'm not going to micromanage the way that I've been micromanaged in my past sometimes, because I go like, that's your voice. All I can do is try to force you to make it sound more like my voice. If I give you a bunch of notes, I can give you cautionary tales, go like, look, I know from my experience, these things don't work. You might make it different. I'm just telling you, I know when you might get in trouble with something. Maybe you don't care, but I want to offer that advice and shepherd and try to protect as much as I can. But I just really hate when producers try to change it into their voice, because then it's just like, well, then you're just making somebody do the work for you, versus like I'm very happy to go like, that's that this is that person's show. Minx is Ellen Rappaport. I mean, she's brilliant. That's from her brain. But then we did Love Life, which it was Sam Boyd was really brilliant putting that together, and that each the season is a different character and a different story altogether. So, it's just really, I just get real excitement out of hearing things done in a way that I wouldn't have thought out how to do.
Paul, can you talk about like maybe some of the pitfalls that new show creators run into sometimes when they're say like maybe going through the pilot process or the first batch of season one?
Yeah, I think it's being inflexible. I think it's the don't tell me what to do. I know this better than you. You may, you probably do. I'm talking about with the studio and the networks and all that stuff. But the minute you go, no notes, don't tell me, they'd shut up. They're just like, well, screw you, and, I had an experience on a pilot I did, about 15 plus years ago, where it was looking like it was really going to get picked up. And it was really, the performances are great. It cut together great and everything. And the head of this one scene at the end, it was all based around this Frank Sinatra song with these main characters all dancing at this thing. And the showrunner was really had it set in his head. It wanted to be this one song that's really sad and blah, 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 and it was fine. But then the head of the network kept going like, you should use this song. It would be so much better. It'd be so much fun. And then my friend who's the showrunner just fought and fought and fought and fought. And we kept reading articles about like, this looks like it's going to be the one that's going to go. It's going to go. We're like, hey, we're bulletproof. And then I remember one day he was fighting, and then the head of the network goes like, you know what? It's fine. Just put it on every song you want. And I was like, oh no, we're dead. And literally we were dead. And never saw the light of day, so you just gotta play the game. If you don't love politics, don't get into commercial entertainment. If you're going to fund your own indies, do whatever you want. Still try to entertain an audience. But if you've got overlords who are putting money into it, you gotta play the game. And when I say play the game, I mean, it sounds Machiavellian, and maybe sometimes it is. You got to figure out, you're going to get a load of notes, and most of them are going to be infuriating, but you have to go, don't just go, screw you. You go like, look for the germ. Why is the note there? Is there something they don't understand? And that's, to me, is always the thing, like, oh, they don't understand this. And you can't fight against that note. Like if somebody doesn't understand something, they don't understand something, you can call them an idiot all day long. But if they didn't get it, there's a chance a lot of people in the audience aren't going to get it. So, but the problem is then what they do is they will bury their note in a solution that is usually not great, so again, you have to go like, I see the problem you're having. I'm not sure if that would work. I can try it if you want. And always, again, don't be like, well, we can try it. Sure. But I think this might help, but if you are hearing them, they feel heard. Their job is to give notes. They're never going to go like, this is great. Don't do anything, because then they don't have a job anymore. They've eliminated their own job.
So it feels like a double-edged sword. Like you want the enthusiasm and participation of the executives, but at the same time, you don't want to be smothered by it. Right. I'm just asking. I don't know. Forgive me if this is a dumb question, but do you find when you get notes on something that's more dramatic, it's a little easier to incorporate than executives who maybe don't come from comedy trying to give notes on what's funny?
Yeah, no, there's nothing worse than somebody giving you comedy notes, you know, because but the way I get around that. I mean, but also kind of late in the process is by doing these test screens. You know, when you're in development, then you're kind of, you know, you're fighting whatever. But yeah, once you get to the test process, then it's like, you know what? Let's put it in front of an audience. Like I can fight for a joke all day. And if I put it in front of an audience and people don't laugh, then it's like, well, guess what? I guess I was wrong, you know, and vice versa. If they're telling you that's a terrible joke and you put it up and go like, it's a giant laugh and go like, well, they like it. So I guess it's got to stay in. I did have one executive once on one of my movies, I will not name, who he was a little bit of a prude. And we had a joke that he thought was too R-rated or whatever. And it just destroyed every time. The audience just and so finally I he goes, you take it out. It's not funny. I'm like, well, it is. They're laughing. I literally took the tape of the audience from the test screening and played him the laugh. And he goes like, they're not laughing. Like he refused to hear the evidence. And it's like, so we ended up having to take it out, which was gutting for me.
They were thinking of something else.
Yeah, I know, totally. I know. It just sometimes you're just like, oh, okay, you know, you got a horse, but I horse traded that for another thing that he hated. So, you know, get something and negotiate whenever you can.
So I've heard sometimes, you know, when it comes to, well, let me just ask, like when it comes to doing a show like Minx, did you guys ever like write a scene or write some dialogue that well, I mean, maybe HBO stars is a little different, but let's say with, you know, broadcast network television that you knew was going to kind of get dinged in terms of standards and practices, but you knew if like you let that scene take the hit that some others could sort of make it under the wires and
we've pulled that gag a few times where you go like, oh man, they're gonna have trouble with this thing over here. Let's put in something even worse down here and go like, all right, we'll take that out, but you got to leave that. Okay, sure, you know. But again, that's pretty Machiavellian to do that. But one thing we did on Freaks and Geeks that we had great success with was if we had something we weren't sure about, we would call standards and practices and say, what can we get away with? I mean, you know, we did that one episode about the pot smoking. And, you know, just we're both like, oh, man, they're not going to let us show people smoking pot. But we wanted to do this whole storyline. So we said, let's just call them up. And they called them up and said, like, OK, what can we and can't we do? And they ended up telling us that we could do more things than we thought we couldn't do. So, you know, so it's not, you know, the kind of the moral of that story is don't be afraid to bring the people in charge into the process, because that will go so far with them because they won't feel like you're colluding behind their backs. You know, I mean, you know, I've said this before, but, you know, people, you know, my career's going pretty well, you know, and, you know, so everybody's like, boy, I bet you can get anything made that you want. They'll just do whatever you want. It's like, no, they won't. It actually gets harder as you go along, because especially as you get older, they just kind of go, but I think that you have more success. It's like they say, oh, this is the one he's going to screw us on. You know, like he's been trying to be commercial here, but you know what? This might be the one he thinks he's going to do his art film. He's going to try to pull some, you know, there's just this weird, again, because it's very corporate, you know, of this feeling of like, oh boy, we're going to get burned, because, you know, you see it happen all the time. Somebody puts out something that's too arty for an audience, not even arty, but just, you know, is not number one in service of the audience. You know, it's got some other personal thing to them, which can be great movies, but you just got to walk that line and go, you know, I still want to make you money. You know, that's the gross way to put it. But like, if you lose them money, they are not happy and you don't get to work anymore. If you make them money, even if it's just, you just show a profit, you don't lose them money, they will keep banking on you. So, you know, so again, that's why anything you can do to kind of make them feel like, oh, good, this person's a team player. You know, they're going to listen to me, but they're also, you know, they're going to stand up for themselves. They don't want a jellyfish either. They don't want somebody who just goes like, you know, just tell me what you want. Because their ideas are usually wrong. Their problem is right. Their ideas are wrong. And if you just go, okay, I did what you told me to do, it's like, well, wait, what? You know, so you got to play the game, you know.
Well, this is an odd question, and forgive me. I'm friends with John Ross Bowie, and I love John. And a lot of people, you've got a lot of fans here tonight, and I'd say most people don't know that you were the mind behind what were the funniest online commercials for the Ford Focus ever. With Doug,
I love that you brought this up.
Fighting the sunrise. Oh my God! Is there any chance? And probably, I'm guessing 90% of the people here tonight have no idea what the hell I'm talking about. But
I guarantee it.
Is there any chance at all? Again, I'm fanboying out. Please forgive me. That we could see John and Doug in a sitcom or somewhere in the future.
They were one of the best comedy teams ever. I mean, huge kudos to Paul F. Tompkins, who was so funny. I mean, it was this dumb thing. They, I do commercials very rarely, but they just kind of came to me, and it was right in the middle of, God, I think it was in the middle of Bridesmaids and everything. And they just wanted to do a thing with a puppet, and I just got really hell bent on the fact they wanted this really elaborate puppet. I said, no, it's got to be a really shitty puppet. Like, it's just got to be like a low rent Muppet,
Or
and then cast John, who was
no features, button eyes.
Totally. But then Paul F. Tompkins was so funny, and his rapport with John was so funny. But the funniest thing about that was when we were shooting the first one, it was all about Doug is at this thing, and he's talking at a podium, and Paul F. Tompkins was doing the puppet, but he would be doing we'd be in the middle of a take, and the puppet would be talking, and all of a sudden the puppet would just go like that. Happened. He goes like, my arm is killing me. Like, I can't keep my arm up. So what we ended up doing is we had the puppeteer who was there, who was great, who was so smart and good that he could be right in sync with John, as Paul F. Tompkins was ad-libbing all this stuff. He could just match it. It was kind of crazy. So that allowed Paul to have all his. Yeah, so Paul had all his powers, and he and John were just able to play off each other, and he didn't have to worry about working the puppet and all that. So we ended up doing a ton of those. They were so much fun.
I love it when the couple, the test drive, and Doug hitting on John's boss. My God, just so funny.
John dressing the puppet down always made me laugh. No, you may not. You may not. We're really sorry, students. We're really getting into the weeds.
Yeah, I'm sorry. So, we've got a few final questions from the students. Nolan Sheets has a question for you, asking, what advice would you give a younger version of yourself if you were starting in the industry today in 2023?
Nolan, great question. It's a tough one because you want to say, like, don't stress yourself out so much, but it's impossible to not stress yourself out because you don't know if it's going to work. If I was starting out, I go like, oh, you know what? In 30 years, I'll actually be doing okay. Like, then, I would probably not be doing okay because I just kind of relax and not do anything, So you really just got to drive yourself, and, it's kind of what I said back at the beginning about, the writing and stuff. Like, just if you're a writer, keep writing. If you want to be a director, take this thing, your phone, and make movies with it. Because when I made that movie in 1997, that cost me $35,000, it was all based on film and processing, and it looks terrible. I mean, it's 16 millimeters, all grainy and everything. Now I could have shot that on HD. I could literally have got the movie for free on my phone, and it would have looked super, and I could edit it on my laptop and all that. So I would just say,
can we find that on Amazon today? Is it
that movie? No, it doesn't. Now? It doesn't exist. It exists in my house. One of these days I want to put it out, but there's all kinds of technical issues with it and all that, and I also have to deal with music rights that I need to pay for and all. So,
yeah.
I don't, but I'll put it out someday just because it's interesting. Yeah.
You ran into music writes with Freaks and Geeks too. That delayed things for a little while, right? Yeah.
Yeah, no, totally. No, you know, when we all love putting in songs that we love into things, but boy, you complicate your life when you do that. Find a great composer, you know, and just have them do a score for you. But no, but I just to finish up on that answer, I just think you just gotta do it, you know, and really be hard on yourself and just I guess what I was going to originally say, but you know, don't let yourself off the hook and don't think everything you do is wonderful. It's very hard to do that because, you know, you kind of get enamored with your words and what you do and all that. But, you know, show it to people, get their honest opinions, show it to people you don't know if you can and get their honest opinions. It's going to hurt, you know, but you got to find your voice, because all that stuff helps you find your voice. Yeah.
And you said it was 10 scripts before Freaks and Geeks, right? That you had written 10 scripts before that. Huh?
Yeah, I just would write scripts all the time, you know, and, you know, a lot of them weren't good. A lot of them were half finished, you know, I would kind of get in the middle of them and then like, oh, I don't know what I'm doing. I didn't plot it out enough. But it all, again, I learned, okay, here's the pitfalls here. When I hit this point in the middle of the script, I'm going to lose all my confidence. And so I need to have enough to push past it. You know, you just get to know yourself and get to know yourself well so that then you don't fall apart when the inevitable moments of weakness happen. You know, I always say, like, I can tell you exactly how I work when I write a script. First act, I'm on fire. It's all coming out great. Get to the beginning of the second act, I'm kind of like, okay, cool. I think I got this, but the second act was a little scary. And, you know, the minute I get to the middle of the second act, I'm like, this is awful. I don't know what I'm doing. You know, and my poor wife is like, terrible. You know, but then I learned, okay, just push past it, push past to the, you know, you kind of get to the end of the second act. And the minute you get past that second plot point, you're getting the third act. Then I write the third act like in a day or two, you know, so it's just knowing yourself well enough to know that's, you know, that the mental process you're going to go through and the mental, you know, anguish you're going to bring upon yourself.
So I think one of the toughest things that I struggled with, and I think I got better at it, we teach courses on pitching, both feature projects and original television projects at DePaul. A lot of it is basically kind of based on what I screwed up on in the room and what sometimes worked for me. What do you feel? And this is a question from Lillian Patrick. How should a writer pitch a feature script or a feature project when they go into a room?
This is a tough question because I'm a really good TV show pitcher and I'm a terrible movie pitcher. That's why I usually write my scripts. I usually just write them on spec. Because I have a hard time pitching a movie. Some people are really good at it, but my process of writing a movie a lot of times is I'll kind of know where I want it to go, but I don't have it all worked out because I want to kind of surprise myself as I'm going. That's why everything I write tends to be first person. So I'm like it's happening to me and I'm kind of reacting and surprising myself going, oh, I didn't think I would react that way, but now that sends this off on a different direction. And as long as I can get it to the end that I need, I can. So I'm not very helpful on telling you how to pitch a feature other than if you're going to do it, have it outlined out and make it, you know, about 20 minutes, 25 minutes. Don't make it too long. But for TV, what you want to do is pitch the characters. You know, I find, you know, kind of go like, it's about this. And you kind of give a very brief kind of saying about what the log line of the show is, and then get immediately into the characters because a lot of people make the mistake of pitching the situation, and situations don't mean anything really. I mean, you know, you get into something like, you know, The Last of Us and those kind of things, but even that is all based on the characters. You know, we've seen zombie shows before, you know, and that kind of thing. But the minute you kind of create these three-dimensional living, breathing characters for people, and they're like, oh, they're excited about that, then you can just kind of come in, you know, like, you know, and the pilot will be this, you know, and you kind of give the log, you know, not a log line. You have to kind of break it down into, you know, pretty good structure. And then you have to present at least a season's worth of samples of what stories could be. And those can be just like, this episode could be 1 line, 2 line,
it's like a log line or something.
Yeah. But then you also then want to go like, and then in season 2, it would cover this. Season 3 would cover this. Season 4 would cover this. And that can be very vague, not vague, but just say like, see, there is a life beyond this. Honestly, when we pitched, when we took Zoe's Extraordinary Playlist out, I remember when I read that pilot, I loved that actually it was even before it was written, Austin Winsberg pitched it to me. I loved it, but I remember, my company was kind of like, we don't know. And even I was going like, I don't know if this has any life beyond like the pilot, but it was like, but it's so, there's something so sticky there and so great and it could be really fun. And then Austin was like, no, I know where it's going. And for him, it was because it was all about telling the story of his father's disease, the last year of his father's life. And so I was like, okay, if somebody's got that, if they're that hyper in tune to it and they've got that much of an emotional investment in it, then they're going to know where to take it. And, but then I was amazed when he pulled off the second season, and then we got canceled. So, but not any fault of his. I mean, that show, and then, we did a Christmas movie. So, but I'm very proud of it.
I love that show. And, I think, well, I didn't know that about Austin's father, but, when you watch Freaks and Geeks and Paul's autobiographies, Kick Me and Super Stud are so reflective of Paul's childhood and teen years, and you see it in Freaks and Geeks, and what I've been encouraging the students to do is not just say, wouldn't it be cool if there was a show that was about blank, but what is the personal connection to these characters, to what drives you to want to tell this story? Is that something that you feel is a benefit, or is it something that's more imperative? Or
no, I think it's very important. I mean, I always say a lot of the stuff that I write is a reaction to other things that I don't like. Freaks and Geeks was just because I didn't like the high school stuff that was being produced at that time. I just thought it was all about people I didn't know. It was representing teen life in a way that I never experienced it, with everybody so cool and dating and having sex. I was just like, we were all terrified. So that, and then Spy, when I wrote Spy, that was a real reaction just to James Bond movies. I always wanted to do one, but I knew I couldn't get hired onto one. But I was like, but I have all these funny women. Maybe I'm going to write one, and then, that movie's all it is kind of deconstructing the tropes of a James Bond movie, but with a very solid character, emotional arc in the middle of it, of somebody who has no confidence, who's being kind of, kept under the thumb of somebody else who's using them, who then breaks out and finds their own confidence, but that was a very personal, kind of story to me.
Coming back to the underdog.
Totally. But you have to have I personally have to have a hyper connection to things. If you look at the heavy sci-fi and all that stuff, and, again, Last of Us and those things that are popular now, there's still a very emotional core in those. And I think that's the only way that the showrunners can attach themselves to it and push it forward. If it's just kind of like, let's just dream up cool shit every week, you run out of steam. It's just like, same thing with a comedy. You go like, let's just put in a ton of funny jokes. Yeah, a ton of funny jokes are great, but if you're not engaged emotionally, you kind of start looking at your watch and going like, okay, well, these jokes are really funny, but I have no investment in this. I have no stakes in this, of wanting to see these characters, succeed.
The heart of it. Yeah. One of the things I loved so much about Ghostbusters was the Ghost Girl backstory. That was just such a sweet connection, and sort of like a high school pain and kind of feeling like the outsider, and just that bond between the two women that just lasted over the years. And it just felt like that was like the building block of this great relationship.
Yeah.
It's great. I love that.
That was why it was so sad that we actually, that movie was, we had to cut it way down, because that movie really at its core is about legitimacy and the idea of like, I know something and nobody else believes me, and I'm being made to look illegitimate, because they don't believe me. So I'm looking like the crazy person when I know I'm not the crazy,
Yeah.
So that was really what drove it. And then, the first cut of the movie was 3.5 hours long, but if you, but if you watch the director's cut, a lot more of that stuff is in there, and it's really, Kristen Wiig's character is really having a crisis throughout it, and that's again that's all the ghost stuff and all that's the fun stuff on top of it. Hopefully.
So one last question for you. What would you say? And this probably is a little easier asked than answered. But do you have and this last question comes from Jillian Walls. Do you have a best, a fondest memory on set of that sort of is kind of a bigger love, a bigger moment that you have than some of your other projects? Like, is there a favorite, I guess is what I'm trying to say.
I don't know if there's a favorite. There's a few that really stand out to me of just moments when I thought either something was so funny or just so great. I remember when we were doing the Jim and Pam's wedding for The Office, and when we were so far behind. I mean, we were like, they were going to pull the plug on us. So we hadn't shot that last scene of them doing the musical number coming down the aisle and all that. And, so just like, you guys, I think we got like one shot at this, and they came in and I remember just like being numb behind the monitor going like, oh my God, this is like, I was choked up and you're just like, how did this happen? We ended up actually doing another take, but we used the very first take because it was just so, I hadn't even seen it,
Wow.
rehearsed. They were just doing it out in the parking lot. We were trying to finish all the other scenes, so that was really special. That was great. And then I think shooting the airplane scene in Bridesmaids was just,
my God.
Wiig was on fire.
Yes.
I mean, the whole thing when she first comes up drunk,
Was stoked.
She was so brilliant. And I would just do take after take because every time she'd come up, it'd be like, what's she going to do this time? And it was really hard to weed that down. There was so much funny stuff. But, so that was pretty magical too.
Love that. Love that. Well, Paul, thank you so much for your time tonight. It was wonderful being able to speak with you. And it's just, an incredible experience for myself and for the students. We just really appreciate it.
Oh, my pleasure. Thanks. Thank you, Chris. It was really nice to do this, and everybody find your voice, make good stuff, and do it. Just do it.
Have a great night. Thank you.
You too. Thanks. Cheers. Bye-bye.
Bye.